All right, y'all. Welcome back to Technical Knockout, the MMA Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Hussein, and today we have a very special guest, number one ranked amateur heavyweight, Jacob Estevez. What's up, Jake?
Sir. What's up, brother? It's good to be back again. Thank you guys for having me. Shout out to everybody, man. The support has been crazy, and so far the journey's is going pretty good.
We're gonna get into it. We're gonna play our favorite song, and then we're gonna get into the interview, guys.
What's up, TKO Nation? Welcome back to the TKO Podcast. Make sure you tune in.
That's right, baby. We're back. We're so back. We got Jacob in the studio. We're pumped. Jacob's my boy. I've known him for a long time. We wrestled together in high school. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've probably seen our other interviews, but just a little bit of background. Me and Jacob have known each other for almost like 15 years now. And, we wrestled in high school. We rapped together after that, and my boy kept going. And now he's number one ranked amateur heavyweight in the country, and that does not come easy. I'm proud of you, brother. I'm happy to have you on here.
I appreciate that, brother. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that you are proud of me. I'm proud of you, bro. I'm grateful for, like I said, all the support, man. It's pretty crazy the journey we've been on so far.
Yeah, it's insane, man. I mean, it feels like yesterday we were trading bars in the wrestling locker room, So to see you spitting them after a hard-fought victory in the cage, it's surreal, dude. Congratulations on your new ranking. First off, number one amateur heavyweight in the country. It doesn't happen overnight, You built up this career over the last few years, steadily gaining more and more experience, more and more lore throughout everything. What, at this point of your career, do you think you are working on the most? What are you trying to shore up before you go pro?
What I'm trying to shore up before I go pro, I would say is quality over quantity, actually, in terms of my opponents. So I just had my eighth fight. All right, so now I'm 8-0. And I know that a lot of guys, by the time that they get to this point, if they've even gotten to this point in their amateur career of the quantity of matches, they would have already gone pro. So right now I want to have a quality. If I'm gonna be here, right, just to use the example of like, let's say G League to NBA, or that prospect of developmental versus, now it's time to perform. I'm gonna use it to the fullest of its capabilities. I'm not just gonna stay in the G League per se and put up 100 points. If I'm ready to go pro, if we are ready to go pro, let's make it happen. But if we're gonna stay in the amateurs, I'm number one ranked, right? So I want to fight with somebody top 10 at the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I've had fights at regional rankings. I was number one in the region of the Northeast. My eighth fight was just with the gentleman who was number five. At one point I was number 10 in the Northeast. I had a fight with somebody who was 20th. So those are good tests on a regional scale. I want to fight on a national level though. Before I go pro, I think that a lot of guys, they skip the process of, how do I say, like checks and balances. You know what I mean? It seems like to me that I'll say like the magical number, right, that I've seen is like four, right? Guys get four fights, whether they go 3-1, they go 4-0. But I see these guys, they get four fights and then they just skip and say, all right, boom, I'm ready to go pro. And listen, I got you. You 4-0, you undefeated, right? I get that. But that's just on paper. When you look at, further than that and you say, okay, who you fought? I think it's time that I answer that question. I fought guys, like I said, on a regional level. And now I want to fight somebody on a national level. So I want somebody top 10, top 5. Obviously, right, if I could get the number 2 as closest to me as I could, I want to certify, okay, I've fought guys that I'm probably going to see in the pros anyway, right? But I'm using the amateurs to its fullest capability from the developmental perspective.
I think that's a great idea, man. I think that there's a lot of people who rush going pro, and even though you are 8-0 and you've had so much success throughout your amateur career so far, you faced a lot of hurdles in those 8 fights. You know what I mean? You've had guys pull out at the last minute. You've had guys quit in the middle of the fight, throwing up in the middle of the fight. And in the most recent fight,
Sure.
maybe maybe it's different from where I'm sitting and from, where you're fighting, but for me, it looked like that most recent fight was your toughest challenge yet. Would you agree with that?
No, I would disagree with that, actually. I would say that my toughest fight to date in my amateur career was actually my first title fight, September 2024. That was when I was 3-0. That, well, like I just said, when I was 10th in the Northeast with the
Mm-hmm.
gentleman who was 20th in the Northeast. That one would have been my toughest in the amateurs because being as humble and not, it's not even about humility, but it's about being as honest as possible. That's the only person that I felt was had a deeper bag per se than me, was more skillful than me. It was just a matter of, oh, you know what? He's only more skillful than me in some areas. We could go tit for tat like that for, let's say, 2 minutes, right? Let's say a round.
Mm-hmm.
And so it proposed a different challenge that in none of my fights I've faced before or since. Me personally, I feel, oh, nah, and this could come from just confidence or, maybe a little bit of brashness, but in all of my fights and all of my scouting reports I do on myself and my other opponents, I've never felt anybody was better than me. I've always
Mm-hmm.
felt, okay, he's, stylistically, whatever matchup, whatever, forgive me, problems he could bring to the matchup, that's okay. But he's not a better martial artist. He's not a better fighter than me. My first title fight, when I was in there, you get those moments. If you land something, if somebody lands on you, et cetera, how it's going, you kind of know what's going on, whether you need to turn it up, dial it back, wrestle, strike, et cetera. That was the one fight where I told myself, actually, I had gotten caught with a hook, and I told myself, Jake, you're gonna lose this fight if you don't, switch up your game plan, lock it in, et cetera. And just being truthful, I haven't had to tell myself that in any fight before or any fight since.
Mm.
So, shout out to that guy. But, listen, like you said, Lord, there's a lot of things. There was a lot more things leading up to this fight. I'll say this was my toughest fight of on some like outside of the actual cage,
Mm.
leading up the pre-fight. This one, had its own kind of more mental kind of battles, more mental games with it. Um, but I was locked in. I was ready to go, and I'm always gonna be locked in and ready to go. You know what I'm saying? I'm excited for these challenges to arise because I'm gonna be able to prove that I'm stronger than them, I'm better than them, et cetera. Whatever the case is, whatever fancy saying you want to have.
Sure.
Um, I had an opportunity. This one I really felt was an opportunity to earn my respect. I felt my name was being a little bit played with leading up to this, so I didn't really like how that was going.
In what sense? Do you mean with the promotion or like critics online or something? The fighter himself?
Whether it be with, whether it be, well, yeah, actually, the fighter himself, he was popping a little bit online, but you know me, I'm not really too much of a online, how would I say, personality in that
Yeah,
sense,
yeah, I
going
feel
back
you.
and forth with people. But that don't bother me. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna always keep it respectful, unless you want to make it disrespectful, then we could keep it disrespectful. But
Sure.
I'm gonna always, keep like I said, keep it respectful. I'm a calm guy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, nah, listen, shout out to the promotion, but from the promotion to the fighter to perhaps like you said online critics to just in my own life my own challenges and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. Everybody goes through their ups and downs, you know what I'm saying, but I didn't have ups and downs. I just had big moments and such in my life, you know what I'm saying. So I had to really make sure, okay, you know we're 7 fights before this fight,
Yeah.
we're 7 fights deep now, we're about to get to the end of our amateur career, then we're going into the pro career. It kind of sinks in that like, hey, it definitely was never for play,
Mm-hmm.
but are we really gonna, go all the way with this? Because there's a bunch of stuff that could be pulling us in a different direction, and that was anticipated. You know, now is where we see. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm using like a workout example, let's say you're gonna do, hey, I'm gonna do a set of 5. If you're gonna do a set of 5, then the first 3 reps was a given. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Right now, I felt like I was at rep 4. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I bet here's where you get some trials and tribulations. that it's on you to prove that you can overcome them. Because the only way to get there is to get through here. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So I
Yeah.
felt like that. I felt good with this fight.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was awesome. It was a great fight, and I think more
Thank you.
than anything, what you showed and what you show throughout your amateur career is a few like intangibles. You know, like of course you have the great wrestling in the back pocket. You go for that high crotch slam like almost every fight, if not every fight. And I mean, it's
Sure.
awesome. I love it. For me, I feel like it's kind of like a signature move that you're building up right now. I'm always looking for it, and I know that you are too. But the thing is that you're not rushing it. You know what I mean? The intangible I'm talking about is really patience. I see you in there picking your shots, not rushing the guy. You know what I mean? Not rushing your hand, putting the pace on them, putting the pressure on them, and having that patience to not jump on the opportunities when they present themselves, but to keep putting yourself and the other guy in the position that the opportunities are going to keep arising. You know what I mean? I think a great example of that in this most recent fight was the ankle pick that you got. I think it was in the second or the third round where you guys were wrestling against the cage, and it got to a point where like you had the leverage on him for the ankle pick. You saw it and you took it. And that's just a great example of that kind of like patience that you have in your career, and I think that's going to be a huge step going forward.
Yeah, thank you, bro. And that actually, is art imitates life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm genuinely a patient, calm, cool,
Yeah.
collected type of person, and I let that reflect in my fights. And I've actually one of my biggest critiques that I had on myself that I was happy with my most recent two fights, right? January 31st Flex Fight Series and December 13th Extreme Cage Fighting,
Hmm.
where my biggest critique on myself was that I felt I towed the line, on the opposite side of the coin of patience is like timidness. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
So you could I've felt I've been in situations kind of like, hey, I'm being patient, but if you were to look at it from a different outlook, you could say I'm waiting versus creating, right? There's a lot of negative space that I can fill with. It doesn't have to be. I can fill regardless, whether
Sure.
it be with strike volume, whether it be with feints to make further reads, whether it be with wrestling for whatever purpose, et cetera, whether it be with pressure. Um, there were moments where I needed to, like I said, fill that space. That was my biggest critique, and I've been noticing in my fights less and less of that negative space where it's like nothing is happening.
Hmm.
Uh, because I've been being told, yo, you're very composed, you're very patient. And like I said, I didn't want to get that mark of patient but boring or needs a lot of time to think. I'm always going to be a person that, listen, I'm downloading my data. I'm always, it's just natural. I'm always going to be a person that as the fight goes on, I'm going up like this in terms of cardio, in terms of volume, in terms of whatever, because of the reads I've made. That just is the game plan that, like they say, styles make fights. That just is the type of fighter that I am. And that's a style that a mentality I'll say that I'm going to keep throughout my career. I'm getting faster and stronger as the fight goes on.
Yeah.
But I'm just making a comment on myself. Like I knew, hey, you need to close that gap of negative space because there's going to be guys where we're moving, we're going, everything is kind of now, and I'll have to slow the fight down.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you've been like we said, the patience can almost lead to timidity. I personally haven't seen
Hmm.
that kind of timidity in the fights, but obviously this is something that you're feeling when you're in the cage, and watching the fight over and
Hmm.
over. These are some of the lessons that you're learning throughout your career, and this is why, to circle back, this is why it's so important to flesh out your game in the amateurs, because finding this out in your second or third pro fight is going to be a lot harder of a lesson to learn than in your sixth amateur fight. You know what I mean? Um,
Absolutely.
there's like this certain flow that you're following in your fights, and you kind of alluded to it just now, that you ramp up as the fight goes on. Like you said, you're downloading the data, you're making the reads, you're making the adjustments mid fight. These are like such high level attributes to have at this stage of your career. You know what I mean? A lot of heavyweight fighters or a lot of MMA fighters in general are trying to make something happen first and trying to rush their opponent. And I see that you are more trying to break them. Maybe it's something I'm projecting, but that's something that I see is a common theme throughout your fights. You know, that third round is always your strongest. You know, I haven't seen you lose a third round. You know what I mean? Usually that's when the other guy starts to wilt, and I see that it motivates you even more. Is this something that comes natural to you, or is this something that you had to acquire through reps and experience?
No, this is something that comes natural to me. I'll say to a certain degree, but I like that you use the word high level. I'm at a high level gym.
Mm-hmm.
So what high level gyms, what's going to happen when you go there is they're going to see, let's say, what you're good at, and they're going to see what you're bad. Let's say not good, bad. What's your strengths and what's your weaknesses? And your strengths, we're going to maximize those. We're going to make your strengths hit the ceiling that they're supposed to hit. And your weaknesses, we're going to minimize them. So that's just a credit to my coaches and to myself as we work together, you know, as a team. I do have that natural, I'm in it for the long haul type of mentality and even type of approach that does come natural to me. It's just, like I said, with filling that space, with things like that, those attributes, learning how to bring that type of style to its peak through my gym, through my coaches, through the repetitions and the drilling and the partners and the, you know, situational rounds and live through all of it, right? Through the training of it with my gym. So I'll say both. No, it definitely does. It definitely does come natural to me.
Yeah, I can sense, obviously it's not going to be something that you just pick up off of the street, you know what I mean? As you said, you're a composed
Sure.
person and patient person in life, you know? So naturally that would translate over to the MMA career, and at the gym you're at, with the training with the sparring partners and the training partners and coaches that you have, they're going to keep sharpening those tools, you know? And, you know, we see it, you know, make its way into the cage every time you come out there. Now, to circle back to training, you know, obviously you've trained in every martial art to get to this stage, but when you're looking at your schedule for the week, which session are you most excited for? What's your favorite, you know, like martial art to train in at this moment?
So you had asked me which classes am I most excited to train for, and I was answering that I'm excited to train for all of them, right? But I do feel that there's two classes that if I was going to recommend to a fighter, or obviously recommend to myself, like, listen, I can only make these classes. What must I take at Culture Fight Club, or basically anywhere, to be honest? Now that I've seen, like, hey, for the fundamentals of fighting, like I said, I would take my coach Chris Roman's striking class. It's like an MMA kind of, how would I say, strategy and tactical kind of class, right? That this is one of those moments where, you know, when fighters say they're in camp, and I've always had that feeling like, well, what does that mean, right? At least for myself, camp is just 80% of the same workouts you were going to do regardless. You just maybe do them with a higher intensity, let's say, and then 20% like opponent specific. This class, it really does dive into that. It gets very opponent specific. So for the fight that I just had, this session, I was completely locked in on, okay, doing certain drills based on the scouting report of my opponent. So I really like this class for my camp. My subsequently my camps really allows me to get into the scouting and just the concept of like ring IQ. This really helps me develop my ring IQ, stuff that I don't think a lot of guys are doing. I think a lot of guys are doing, they're hitting mitts, they're hitting the bag. Like I'm hitting mitts and hitting the bag, but those little things that are going to separate you, I think this concept of ring generalship is definitely one of them. And the second one would be actually my wall wrestling MMA class. So, you know, just that concept of cage wrestling, I like that. You know, basically the entire class is, okay, this is essentially situational drilling and situational live from within this, you know, 5 foot box. Hey, either you have your opponent pressured against or you are pressured against the cage, right? Again, those little moments. Everybody's drilling, yo, 2-3-2, whatever, slip, roll, duck, boom, 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 in the dead center of the cage. Everybody's drilling, jab, jab, cross, you know what I mean? In the center of the cage. But these classes, they really get fight specific. And that's something that I very much appreciate. And I like doing things like that. I think situational work is some of the better rounds and some of the better ways to elevate your game. Not quickly. You know, nothing is quick. Everything is step by step. But if I do want to see some progress, I'll test myself with situational rounds and compare and contrast from day to day, week to week.
I love those answers, man. These are things that, like you said, a lot of fighters don't focus on. Not only the ring generalship, like you're talking about, like the footwork and how to trap your opponent. You know, I see that in your fights. Now that you say it, it makes so much sense because those are like the things that a lot of people are lacking, even at the highest level, even in the UFC. You know, a lot of these guys are getting are running in straight lines. You know what I mean? And getting their backs put to the fence without even realizing it. I mean, you know, I'm not going to name specific names, but we've seen guys in title fights recently not be able to cut off the cage, and it's cost them their championship opportunity, you know? And onto the wall the wall and maul style of, like, you know, cage wrestling and putting the guy against the wall. That's something that was huge in your last performance, in your last time out there, you know? That was something that really sapped the energy reserves of the guy you were facing and was leading to that breaking point that you made in the third round when you got that big slam against the cage, you know? So it's making so much sense, and I'm really happy that you pointed those things out, you know? Especially, like, in this upcoming, you know, this fight card that's coming up this weekend with Strickland versus Hernandez. I think those are two huge factors that are going to lead to one of those two guys getting it done, you know, whether it's going to be Sean Strickland's footwork and positioning to get himself off of the cage, or Fluffy being able to close in on him and put him against the wall and do that kind of work, those kind of Marab rounds, those Fluffy Hernandez rounds. And if you look back in MMA, Randy Couture, Cain Velasquez, you know, these are guys who made a career off of making it uncomfortable for their opponent, you know? So that's great, man. I'm really happy to hear that. That's dope. You know, I was fully expecting for you to say, like, wrestling because this is what I know, or, like, you know, boxing because I see your boxing getting so much sharper every time out there. But for you to point out those transitional MMA pieces, yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, but and that's why it's getting better. You understand what I'm saying? The boxing is getting better because the footwork is getting better and the IQ is getting better. So once those prerequisites are met, the striking, the boxing, the wrestling, it just becomes kind of like a formality of the system. You know what I'm saying? You wasn't gonna wrestle if let me say the shot wasn't gonna work if the level change wasn't proper, if the technique wasn't there, right? The jab wasn't gonna land if the feint didn't call for the jab, if you weren't in the range. You understand what I'm saying? So what's more important, drilling jabs or drilling range? Of course, jabs is important. Of course, those things, everything is important. But it starts with, or I should say like this, it has to start with something. It's always going to start with the fundamentals. It's always going to start with, okay, so we're in this range. What's available to us and what's available to our opponent? And this is why I said that my coach Chris Roman's class is so important to me, is because it dives into, okay, who's our opponent then? Okay, so if he's this guy with this much reach, then Jake, we're going to be at this exact range right here. We're going to get good at this range. Oh, okay. And then the wall wrestling. Okay, if he has this type of build, or body type, let's say, what slams or sweeps or trips, et cetera, and based on his experience, et cetera, what's going to be available to us? You know, like I'm gonna be honest. Actually, that's a game plan that I had developed when I was in the fight, in-fight adjustment that I made against my opponent specifically. I seen that I was just talking about this. I seen that his waist was very petite, you know, compared to his body. Nah,
Nah,
for real.
just
I
the
know
way
it's
you
gonna sound
said
crazy.
it. But I hear you.
He was big, right? He was big,
Yeah.
like big action figure build, big shoulders, big legs. But I seen he had that V like taper cut, right? And I said, oh, you know what? That just looks to me like it's hella like
Word.
body lockable. Like if I just grab him right there, it's not gonna be a lot of mass there. So I had made the adjustment. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna clinch all up top. I'm gonna grab all up here. I'm gonna squeeze on the shoulders. I'm gonna hit the arm. I'm gonna hit the body. Listen, I'm gonna get a
Yeah.
knockout if I get a knockout, right? But I'm gonna keep everything up top here to tire these out because this is his first mode of defense. It wasn't leverage, right? He never challenged me in terms of uh he never challenged me for the leverage for the lower position,
Yeah.
right? Lower man wins, right? So I had known, okay, boom, when I not just when I want to, but when the time calls for it, when I feel it, go for a body lock. I had attempted one in round two. I got it. He got up, et cetera, et cetera. And then, mind you, I kept everything up here in this torso and up area. So then, I know. So then when it was time in round three, okay, I feel he's tired enough. Let me get wrist control and then drop to locking the hands under the ass for the double leg, and let's go for a ride. And you know, those things just come. They came like you had asked me, does it come naturally, whatever? Yes, it does come naturally. The idea of thinking for that long haul game, but my coaches allow me to see better and allow me to think better, right? So I'm nobody without my coaches. I'm nobody without my training partners. I'm nobody without my family. And like I said, it's a formality, but things are strikes, etc. Takedowns are a formality of the system of proper technique and proper distance management. Art imitates life, bro. My success is just a formality of my discipline and my faith in my family. And you know, I could do nothing without my people.
Word.
You know what I'm
Well
saying?
said, man. Well said. You know, you're putting in the work and putting yourself in the positions to get to that point, and then whenever you get to that point, it's like, oh yeah, of course I've been here before, you know, and you can see that in the fights, you know, like you're saying, it's natural. There's this flow to your fights. There's a flow when you're in there. I can see the gears turning. You know what I mean? Like the perfect examples we were talking with that ankle pick and the body lock slam / double leg that you got.
Right.
You know, usually you go for that single leg
Right.
high crotch, but this motherfucker had huge legs.
Sure.
So you're like, let me get that waist, dog. Like, you know what I mean? So that was great, man. I love it, dude.
Sure.
You've shown a ton of creativity,
Thank you, bro.
you know, in your career, not only in your career and your fighting style, but in your post-fight interviews when you spit the bars, you know? As we both
Yes.
know, you've been a fan of hip-hop for a long time, and it's a huge part of your life. What are some of your biggest inspirations when it comes from a musical perspective?
Oh, when it comes from a musical perspective, you know what? I'll say it was for me it was always like my version of the big three, in all different generations and such. And it just so happens that they all start with J. It wasn't meant to be like that, but that's how it was for me when I was growing up. For me, my inspirations were Jay-Z, my inspirations were J. Cole, and my inspirations were Jada Kiss. Those three for me. If you were just to ask me at any point, hey, who's your favorite rapper right now? It might have changed, but at no point were all of them out of my big three. And you know what's funny that you say the word the inspirational. So how I draw it to MMA, I actually draw a bit of inspiration. I'll be honest from as well as making music and making songs, I had also battle rapped. So I'll be honest though, from my post-fight interviews, I don't draw the inspiration. It doesn't come from the perspective of J. Cole, Jadakiss, da 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 da. It actually comes from battle rap. I actually, if I could share the story, originally I wasn't gonna do the post-fight rapping. My approach was, hey, I rap, etc. Yes, no problem, but I'm in MMA and I'm not playing around with this. So here, I'm a fighter. You know what I mean? So I'm here to fight. I'll have good post-fight interviews, whatever, market myself regardless. Long story short, though, one of my teammates or several of my teammates at some point had found out that I rap. And they were telling me, yo, you can actually rap. You know what would be crazy? Yo, you think you could rap after like a post-fight interview? And at first I was against it. I said, nah, man, I think that'd be kind of corny. I don't want it to be gimmicky. That was my thing. I didn't want it to be gimmicky or corny. Like, I'm not cutting, you know what I mean? Like a WWE promo here. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I thought about it. I watched the first few fights. I had my first few fights because I didn't do this until like my 5th amateur fight. And I actually just watched for, okay, what does a crowd like? You know what I mean? When you get the mic, how much attention span do we have here, right? Am I spitting a verse or am I spitting like, you know what I mean, 2 bars? What do I got? I got 10 seconds in the pocket kind of thing. Okay, and then when you rap or when you speak, what kind of material do they want to hear? Do people want to hear you be super aggressive with it? Do they want to hear you be fly? Then from there, what kind of subject matter, right? So I was coming at it from the, you could say songwriting, right? Lyrical, but like I said, battle rap kind of perspective of, hey, listen, I got about, it seems like the pocket for me is I got like 4 to 8 bars to get it off. And it's like, all right, from there, I'm gonna hit it on the money. So my first one that I did, I actually didn't tell nobody that I was gonna do it because I was like, all right, you know what? I need a genuine reaction here. If I'm gonna do it, I don't need nobody to gas me up. So I just was like, yo, I think I'm gonna say this. I said it. People was rocking with it. They were certainly surprised. Some people were like, what? What's going on? But I think by the time we got to the end of it, people like it. So if people are liking it and it's entertaining, and I'm winning my fights, I'm being entertaining all around, I don't got no problem kicking a few bars. You know what I'm saying? That's easy. That's the light part about it. That's like this. I promise you, that's like the celebratory part. Like, all right, bet, watch this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a great pull. You're talking about the entertainment standpoint and like the markers that you're trying to hit when you only have that much time and you have to captivate the audience's attention. So it's genius. I love it. I love the post fight bars, and now when I'm watching your fights, I'm watching every one of them. You're my boy. I gotta watch out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm watching all the fights. I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking for that right head kick. You know what I'm saying? I see you getting it up there, bro. I see you getting it up there. I'm looking for that crispy power jab. I'm looking for that single leg high crotch slam. And then I'm waiting for the bars, bro. I'm waiting for those bars, And if it's me, me as a fan and a friend watching and waiting for that, I know there's other fans watching and waiting for that too. You feel me? So it's like these are things that kind of build up not only the fighter, but the character around him. You know what I mean? And it's not like you're being disingenuous. You're not getting up there and disrespecting your opponent. You're only bigging yourself up. You know what I mean?
No, it's never. So, that's a fact. And forgive me to interrupt. I like that you say the character and that it's not disingenuous, because that is going to be the best. It's easy for me to go up there and rap, right? Because I'm a rapper, right? I've been rapping since I was 5, right? It's easy for me to go up in the fight and play the long game, download data, boom, 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 make my moves, break my opponents, right? Because I've been doing that my whole life, from wrestling to football, whether I was in high school, collegiate, or the pros. I've been understood. Hey, this isn't a 100-meter dash. You know what I'm saying? We got quarters, we got periods, we got moments. We're gonna have ups and downs. The sport of it, the gamesmanship of it, I always understood. And from there, it's like, all right, bet. Let's see who's got the skill and the durability and the mentality first and foremost. You're not gonna get to the end if you weren't prepared for it. You understand what I'm saying? So that's, like I said, formalities and systems. That's 101. I'm gonna go to the end.
Word.
So what you gonna do? So you feel me? And then after that, you feel me? I flexed on them a little bit with a few bars, but like you said, I ain't never about disrespecting my opponents, man. I'm not with that. I don't gotta say I'm gonna beat you because you suck, right? I can say I'm gonna beat you because I'm good. You know what I mean? And those are two different types of vibes. You know what I'm saying?
Reinforcement approach.
And why would I even want to market the fight like that? Hey guys, I'm gonna beat him because because he sucks. Well, if he sucks, what
Yeah,
do I want to see it
exactly.
for?
Yeah,
You
it's
know
a
what I mean?
classic like Mayweather
Nah,
approach,
I
you know.
don't-
Anytime they ask Mayweather about his opponents,
yeah,
he'd be like, "Oh, this guy's very tough, one of the toughest fights I ever had." Even though, you know, some of those guys we might have already known that he was going to beat him. You know what I mean?
right. And it's not to be cocky. You think I don't know
Yeah.
how badly I'm gonna hurt somebody, but it's like it's not about that, and that's genuinely how I feel. Maybe I don't feel like he's trash, right? But it's the whole point of me fighting. I'm not like when my opponent was talking trash on me from my past fight. Like, yo, bro, I know who I am. You understand what I'm saying? So I know if these guys was to defeat me, for them it would be the Super
Mm.
Bowl. You understand what I'm saying? If I was to defeat them, it's a Saturday, bro. It's a stepping stone. You understand? I respect everybody, but don't get it twisted. I don't overly respect you, and don't feel no type of way. I'm not going to disrespect you. You understand what I'm saying? And let's just keep it that same approach. And you don't gotta you ain't even gotta respect me, but you're not going to disrespect me. You understand what I'm saying? So it's all love with all of my opponents. For me, it don't matter. I do this for me, not for
Right.
them. You kidding
Yeah,
me?
I reminds me of a quote. I don't remember what MMA fighter it was they said this, but they said, before we get in the cage, it's all respect, but once we get in there, I'm going to disrespect you. I'm going to hit you as hard as I can. I'm going to make you uncomfortable, you know? I forget who it was.
Sure.
I'm blanking
Yeah.
on the origin of that, but that's a great mentality to have, you know? And
Yeah,
then
no
after
way.
the fight with the bars, you know, it's not like you're dancing on them, you feel me? But you're spitting that shit, you know? And I love
Right.
the crowd pop, you know?
Right.
These are the things that are going to separate you from, like, oh, there it is. These are things they're gonna separate you from like just another name on the page. You know what I'm saying? Like people might see like
Sure.
another 7-0 heavyweight, but they'll see you and be like, oh yeah, but he had bars too. You feel me? Like, you know what I mean? And it might seem small right now. We might be
Right.
laughing about it, but it really is something that separates people. Exactly. It's
It's
marketing.
marketing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I'm an
Word.
independent contractor, right? I'm an entrepreneur, right? I have my brand that I'm building. Now, I don't want it to be known like he's a better rapper than he is a
Nah.
fighter. We're just hoping he wins so he could kick
Yeah,
a
I hear ya.
bar. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, when you see my amateur sheet and you'll see 8-0 and you'll see okay, 7 finishes, submission, TKO, KOs, right? You see he's balanced, you see he's across the board. I don't put up boring fights. I put up advanced, how do I say, advanced
Yeah.
technical fights, right? Okay, you can see he's downloading data. You can see so my approach is appealing to both the average, naked eye type of audience member,
Yeah.
the casual fan, and my approach is also appreciated by, somebody who likes the higher levels of fighting. And obviously as I get better, it'll, raise more and more attention. But yeah, I certainly understand that it's all marketing too. But like we said, it's not disingenuous. I don't do that approach. I wouldn't rap if I wasn't
Word.
a rapper and good at rapping and knowing what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't just lie about nothing. I think that's the best way to market yourself. This is genuinely me. Because then guess what? If you're a fan of it, you're like genuinely a fan. You know what I mean? It really is me. It doesn't got to be no fake to the
Word.
funk. You know what I'm saying? If you like people getting slammed on their neck, you're
Yeah.
gonna tune in. It
Yeah,
just is what it
100%.
is,
And
bro.
touching back on that, like you were saying about having something for the casual fan who may not understand the intricacies of what they're watching, and then also the stuff that
Sure.
appeals to the people who are like me, and I'm sure a lot of other viewers of the show who are into the more technical fine points of the fighting game. You know what I mean? And the slams are a great point to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, the people who watch the sport all the time, they see you setting up those slams and, what it leads up to and how the impact of them, you know what I mean? But the people who don't really know
Sure.
what they're watching are going to see that and be like, oh shit, he picked him up and put him down. You know what I mean? Like, and there's,
They knew that. Yeah, they
yeah,
knew they was
exactly.
watching
And
that
there's
part.
a lot of like weight to that. We're not only doing this for show,
Right.
but it's not only that the fans are going to notice that, but the judges are going to notice that. They're going to hear the crowd pop, and
Right.
in a fight that's close and a
Right.
round that's close, that big moment can be the decision maker. You know what I mean? I think this last fight
Sure.
was pretty close. Not that I don't think that the other guy had an argument to win, but every round was competitive, you know?
Sure.
The guy was hanging tough in there.
Sure.
And you had the big moments. You had the slam, you had the ankle pick, you had the work against the cage, and all that stuff leads to two of the judges giving you 30-27 in a fight that's super competitive. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge
Absolutely.
step in the... I didn't even think about it until you just said it, but that was the first time you went to decision, huh?
Yes, sir. That was the first time I went to decision. I actually was upset. You know, obviously, I do have pride behind that. I actually do. I don't fight with no emotion, right? But that doesn't mean I don't fight with passion and with a certain intensity. And yeah, certainly I do have a, subconscious, while I'm in there, desire. I want to get the finish. I don't want anybody. It's almost like, it's ironic, right? How it's a martial art. And art is subjective, right? Like you said, he didn't have an argument's chance to win, and yet somebody can say, hey, 29-28 for him. And I'll be honest, I kind of almost don't like that. I kind of feel like if I didn't get the finish, it's like we just had to perform, like there wasn't a winner. Like I didn't win. The time just ran out. You know what I'm saying? I'm out there, I'm trying to get finishes. I'm trying to put my stamp on it. Like if it was me versus him, it was me. It wasn't a decision, and then it was like, hey, let me know what you think. Nah, like I don't. If I was talking to anybody, judging the fight, it's like I don't want to know what you think. I want it to be you can't think nothing else besides I won, and the only way to ensure that is to get a finish. But yes, we did go to decision. That's my first fight that I've been to decision. I had 7 finishes prior to that, but regardless, we'll take a dub. We'll take knowing that we could go to distance, knowing that our cardio was good for that, and beyond. You know what I mean? That was only a 3-round, 3-minute. You understand what I'm saying? I would love to have a 5-round fight, right? 3 minutes while it's in the amateur, and I know that I'm ready. And in fact, my style suits a 5-minute per round fight. You know what I mean? So there's only going to be more data. So instead of in the 3rd round, me getting these reads off, it's going to be the end of the 1st, the beginning of the 2nd. You know what I mean? So I know that my style is just suited for the game that I'm elevating towards. It's just like we said in the beginning, the quality. I'm looking for somebody, top 5, top 10 in the USA to prove myself against. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how many you got. It matters who. And I'm at the point in my amateur career right now that, hey, if I'm going to stay in the G League, if I'm going to stay in the developmental league, bring me the other guy that you telling me is an all-star. Bring me the other prospect. You know what I'm saying? And let's do it at the amateurs where we could learn from that. And you're always going to learn, but bring me the person in the amateurs to where we bang out before we go into the pros and the stakes are higher. I got no issue fighting him again or fighting him for the first time, et cetera, in the pros. I bang out with whoever. But let's use the development to our maximal degree. You know what I'm saying? I can't stand, but bro, I see these guys when they go 3-0, 4-0, and then they just go, and it's like, yo, I know you was 3-0, but your first 3 fights were just to build your hype train, so you didn't really face quality opponents like that, which we all do. That's how you build the hype train, right? You know that there's 2 reasons that you fight people that, let's say, are of lesser level than you, right? One is to build a hype train. Yo, Hus, you just got 3 knockouts in a row. You viral, you lit. The other reason is that if you lose, we're going to know that you're not like that, right? So we're going to know, okay, you're going to be somebody else's first 3 fights that they get. But then these guys, they go 3-0 and they ain't really fought nobody. You go into the pros and you going to fight me.
It's a big jump.
It's like, are you sure Yeah, that's a big jump. And listen, everything is step by step. It's not leap by leap and bound by bound. Don't get it twisted. You're going to take those moments of, all right, I'm ready to jump right here. Let's take 2 steps at a time. Let's start running. Let's pick up the pace. But I understand that, yo, when we go pro, and even now, but certainly when we go pro, it's not for play at all. And we're trying to hit the ground running. You know what I'm saying? Then these guys that go 3-0, they go professional and they get 1 fight in 9 months. What did you go pro for? You might as well have just stayed amateur. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not what you're going to, that's not to disrespect nobody, whoever that might fit. But it's like, yo, when you see me go pro, I'm again, God forbid injury, right? That's the only thing that alters consistency. You're gonna see me being consistent and disciplined, and let's get these fights. I got to get to the UFC. I got to get to the title fights here. I got to get to the league. Like, I got to get to this money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I like you said, you're not happy going to decision. You want to get the finish every time out there, but I think there's a lot of valuable experience in going the full 3 rounds, knowing obviously that you can do it already, considering how we're talking about that you're ramping up the pace every round. But in my head, I'm thinking like if that fight had 2 more rounds, you would get the finish. That guy was not going another 5 minutes. You know what I mean? I don't know if he would have won another 3,
That's exactly what my people were telling me. Hey, Jake, keep your head up, because guess what? If that's a 5-round fight, he getting finished. And if that's a 5 minute per round, 3 minute fight, 3-round fight, forgive me, he wouldn't have made it out the second. I said, you know what? All right, I'll hold my head up. It's not all about just a record, right? Whether you win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. It's about you learning, quality. Right? And I certainly did. Quality. I certainly did learn from that fight. And guess what? After all that saying, whether I'm like, I would have finished him, I would have beat him up. Guess what? Respect to my opponent. Shout out to him. I wish him good luck in his career. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, he did propose certain challenges that I appreciated that he proposed, because it's like, all right, bet this is the time for me to overcome this challenge, right? Because we're just going to face this challenge again and again, right? When we're in the UFC and bet I fought a guy like this before, such and such. Oh, let me look at the film. How did I do here? How did their games translate to each other? And it's all just studying, right? And it's all just about learning about yourself first and foremost. And that's how we learn to beat these other guys.
Big time.
Right?
Big time. Yeah. And it's invaluable. Every minute in there is making you stronger. You know what I mean? Every win is making you more confident, but every minute of those wins is adding to that, And it's not only about the confidence, it's about the experience. It's good to face a little bit of adversity. You know what I mean? In that first fight that you had when you said you got hit with that left hook and you're like, oh, damn, like, now it's getting real. That's something,
that was getting real.
Like, I'm sure motivates you. You know what I mean?
Like, exactly like you said, that first time I got caught with that hook, guess what? That's the first time I got caught with that. That taught me whatever it taught me in that moment. Hey, look, defense, boom, 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 range, et cetera, et cetera. And now guess what? If I get hit again, there's no need to panic.
Exactly.
I've been hit before. I've been caught before. And I already know. You know why he hit me? I wasn't ready for it. Well, in terms of defensively, you know why he hit me or why I didn't land? My range wasn't right. I need to feint. I need to set it up. You know why my takedown didn't land? My level change wasn't proper. I needed all these things, and it's just rinse and repeat. But that's the art of it. That's the beauty of it. That's what I love about it. The puzzle to all right, which piece is gonna fit now? Pause.
But it's all like adding up to this giant. To use the puzzle analogy, it's you're building a mosaic. You know what I mean? And all the pieces matter. You feel me?
Yeah, I appreciate
like you
that.
Started off with the boxing and the wrestling, and those things are strong centerpieces. You know what I mean? But you're adding the footwork, you're adding the Muay Thai, the cage work, the cardio, the pace, the pressure, the positioning, the fight IQ, etc. And all these pieces are gonna land up to a giant, art piece that we're gonna take a step back and be like, oh shit, he is the champion. You know what I mean? So I'm proud of you, bro, and I'm excited to see the rest, how you continue to develop. You know what I mean? Because every fight that I watch of yours, I'm seeing new folds. I'm seeing new improvements, and we talked about it off camera before, but you told me, like, as long as I'm going to keep fighting, I'm going to keep improving, and I love that. You know what I mean? And not for nothing, that's not something that's going to happen. I mean, of course, you improve in the gym, obviously. That's where you're improving more than anything. But if you're knocking everybody out in the first punch, then you're not going to learn much more than how to land that first punch. You know what I mean? So to have this, like, adversity, I wouldn't even call it adversity because, I mean, it is adversity in the sense of this was a competitive fight. But, like, to have these, like, humps that you're getting over, a last-minute replacement in the fight before that, or in the fight, 2 fights or 3 fights before that when you had to fight the same guy again on, like, short notice, And I saw how you reacted to fighting him the first time. You took him down and submitted him in, like, 2 minutes. Second time, you were like, all right, I know I can submit him. Let me try and knock him out. And you did. You feel me? Like, so it's all like, it's all adding up, all the pieces.
Thank you, bro. No, I genuinely do appreciate that, bro, and I'm grateful for that. You know what I'm saying? Pride is a funny thing, right? If you got too much pride in yourself, it's like you're cocky and you can't see the way. But I I appreciate your words, man. They're kinder than I deserve.
But yeah, I mean,
Talk
I'm,
about
I'm
patience.
pretty much set on my questions and stuff. If you want to talk about like MMA as a landscape, the upcoming fights, I'm down to get into that. You know, if you want to cut it here, that's cool with me. Up to you, bro. What do you want to do?
You know what's funny? I was talking to my boy. I said, yeah, I'm gonna have a interview today with my boy TKO, and he was like, oh, is he gonna ask you any specific questions? I said, nah, he asked me whatever he asked me, but I was like, I kind of hope he touches on this one subject of just
Oh
like
yeah,
the state of the heavyweight division. I hear a lot of people they say, "Oh, the state of the heavyweight division, it sucks
yeah.
right now. It's horrible." And I wanted to say like two things. One, like we were just talking about pride. Man, I'll be honest, I hate when people say that. And one is from a prideful perspective, like heavyweight division sucks.
Yeah.
I'm a heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? So it almost is that like I just take it immediately like no. If I'm affiliated with it, it's not trash. So no, it's not trash. But of course I do understand that people say I understand why they say the things that they say, but I was just talking about this and I apparently it was a hot take. I thought it made sense to me. I said, listen, I understand that the heavyweight division is maybe not at its most optimal right now, or not even maybe, is not at its most optimal right now. I said, but am I the only one who feels like the heavyweight division in the next 3 to 5 years is going to be the premier division, like in the UFC? Like easily to me. And my boy asked me, why? How you figure that? And I said, well, if you look at the most hyped up or just the most badass prospects that the UFC or even outside of the UFC has, and me personally, I feel like it's if you gave like a top 10, I would say, bro, like 5 or 6 of them are in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I think that the division at the top right now is kind of stagnating, you know? But
Yeah.
on the flip side of that, there's guys who are like you, for prime example. There's other fighters too who are, early in their professional career or late in their amateur career, that top of the division is ripe for the picking, bro. Like, look at Waldo Cortez Acosta. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a guy who, when he came into the UFC, whenever I watched his first couple fights, I was like, I don't like this guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's like quick, he has the jab, he has good wrestling, but he's not like putting the pieces together like that. You feel me? And he was kind of disrespectful, to be honest. Like, in the cage, he was dancing against Andrei Arlovsky. But that's besides the point. But regardless, look at how the success he's had over the last 2 years, just because he's cannibalizing these old motherfuckers who are sitting at the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, he beat up on Derek Lewis. He beat up on Sergey Spivak. I mean, it was a close fight, but I thought he won. You know what I mean? Ante Delija, he got eye poked and got the knockout. But it's like, you can look at it from both perspectives. I think the big problem right now is a lot of people focus on the division only looking at the champion. And right now, Tom Aspinall, who is one of my favorite MMA fighters of all time, is in a position where he might not fight again. I don't know if you saw the reports on his eye and stuff, but he's still having trouble seeing. They've had like 4 eye surgeries on the guy, and it's all because Cyril Gane is a dirty cheater. And not for nothing, I didn't feel like Cyril Gane deserved to be in that heavyweight title fight in the first place. I don't know. We could talk about the ins and outs of it, but I mean, I love.
You don't think so? You don't think Cyril deserved to be
I don't think so,
in the
bro.
title
I feel
fight?
like he needed another win. I don't even remember he beat the victory that he had that put him in there was against Volkov, and a lot of people thought that he lost that fight. Myself included. I felt like Volkov did more in that fight to win. So like for me, I would have rather have seen it. It's a good fight because both of them are super high level, and both of them have questions that the other one can answer. And we saw that in the 4 or 5 minutes that the fight was playing out. You feel me? Gane was asking questions that we haven't really seen Tom Aspinall need to answer before. How do you hit a moving target? Like Tom Aspinall's been able to smoke these dudes because he's so much more athletic than them for a lot that's a big reason why, So to see him against somebody who was just as athletic as him was awesome, but like it just puts a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm sure in a lot of fans' mouths, that Gon got in there off of essentially a robbery in it was a close fight, but I felt like you could only really argue he won one round in that fight. And then to like maybe retire the champion, who is one of the hottest prospects. I know it's crazy to call the champion a prospect, but one of the hottest, potential heavyweights in a long time, to end his career with a foul. It's heartbreaking. And I think a lot of fans are like disillusioned with the heavyweight division right now. But from my perspective, from where I'm sitting, I see Jacob Estevez in that heavyweight division in the next 4 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm pumped on it because I want to see you. Right. And I have another heavyweight that I interview on the podcast. His name is Gabe Rednose. I want to see you guys take out that stagnated division at the top. You know what I mean?
At this point, especially when people talk about the heavyweight division and the state it's in. Well, listen, naturally, right? Like the heavyweight and the flyweight issue is that there's only so many of us compared to the numbers of men that are at, that are weigh 5'10", 170 pounds, right? Versus 6'5", walking around 280, or versus 5'3", walking around 138. You know what I'm saying? So where it does get a bit top heavy of, hey, if basically in the heavyweight division, if you can have a certain floor of athleticism and like we were talking about intangibles, you're gonna have success, certainly. Yeah, no, I think the best prospects are rising. Like you said, at least in the amateur scene, or I know that he's just recently going pro. Gabe Rednose, shout out to him. Myself, you got guys like Josh Hokett, you got guys like a Mario Pinto, you got guys like a Gable Steveson, you got guys like a Walter Walker, right? Where a Talashin Tejera, where some of these guys are already obviously in the UFC making waves. Some of us are out of the UFC. Some of us are still in their amateur career, but becoming notable on the scene and making waves. And all those guys that I just named, barring injury, right? We're all kind of on the path of, you already know what time it is, right? And guess what? That's 5 to 7 names that I just said. Guess what that means? We're all gonna fight each other. You know what I'm saying? I see it. I think in like 3 to 5 years, you'll see that the heavyweight division is, especially because of the state it's in now, where if everybody's like, oh my goodness, it's so bad, all you need is a little bit of improvement and you're gonna be like, hooray. But I think with the amount of talent that's approaching, and guess what? All those guys from me to Gabe to whoever to Walter Walker, all of us are. I don't think any of us are older than 28 years old. I think Walter Walker's 28, 29 years old. So in 3 to 5 years, all of us are going to be in our basically athletic MMA IQ, strength, speed prime. All of us are going to be 28 to 31 years old. So I would say 2030 is going to be, if I had to make a prediction of sorts, I would say, to me, I already kind of see how things are lining up. 2030 is going to be like the golden age resurgence of heavyweights.
Yeah, I hope 2030 is like the golden age for heavyweight again. There was a point in time where light heavyweight and heavyweight were the premier divisions in the UFC and in MMA as a whole, when you had guys like, Randy Couture and Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that it's not, I don't know if the division has gotten worse. I think it's just that the sport has gotten a lot better in other areas too. You feel me? Like we were talking about that there's only so many men who are built that way for heavyweight and flyweight, on the converse end, you know what I mean? Or inverse rather. It's like a parabolic curve, most people are going to fall in that bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight category class, so you need like those, like either athletic freaks, like Brock Lesnar or Tom Aspinall is a good example too, Cyril Gane, etc., to kind of break the mold and beat up on these
Right.
dudes that have been kind of skating by on their size or their experience, for that matter.
Right, right. Because when people say, "Oh, the division is at its worst," the thing that comes to my mind is, okay, in what metric?
Mhm.
It's at. I don't think you're going to say it's at its worst in terms of skill. I think the heavyweights of
I hear you.
today, it doesn't have to be disrespectful to the legends of
In
the
any
past.
division, yeah.
I think in terms of skill, the heavyweights of today and almost any division of today
Mhm.
will get busy and will come out on top against the divisions of the past. I don't think it's in terms of, what are you going to say, star power, right? I will
Yeah.
say that the biggest heavyweight star is still Brock Lesnar for his time,
Yeah.
but you've got Tom Aspinall, you've got Francis Ngannou, you've got heavyweight
Mhm.
John Jones, and these guys are all post-COVID. You know what I'm saying? These guys are all within the past 3, 4, 5 years. So it's not in terms of star power. I think what it comes down to is in terms of entertainment. I think people feel, oh, it's top heavy. If it's not Tom Aspinall or Cyril Gahn, it's 2 minutes of overhands followed by 3 minutes of intermediate breathing,
Sure.
followed by 4 minutes of sloppy clinch,
Mhm.
followed by, oh, finally somebody just got caught with a hook kind of vibe. And I definitely get that. But again, like I'm saying, with the prospects on the rise, you
Word.
don't see none of that in my fights.
Yeah,
You
that
don't
was
see
great.
none of that. Shout out to Josh Hoke, right? He just did his thing against Denzel Freeman. Shout out to Walter Walker, who's, what is he? He just set the record for most consecutive heel hook finishes in a row. He's essentially the heavyweights latest
Yeah.
and greatest ground game submission threat. You got a guy like Gable Steveson, right? Where he's got his Olympic background and they're building him to be the next great white hope, being associated with John
Yeah, he's a
Jones and
stud.
everything coming out of that gym. Like I said, Mario Pinto,
Yeah, I think
he's
he's
doing his
English
thing.
and
What he represents, what, England, right?
Portuguese, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's English,
Yeah, that was
English
cool.
and
That was
Portuguese,
sick.
and he's doing his thing, acting like he don't speak English, but he's killing it, right? So we got all these guys killing it, myself included. I'm the number one ranked amateur in the country. Subsequently, because
Yeah.
you would not even you would assume, it just is what it is. America is the prime time for fighting. I'm the number one ranked amateur heavyweight in the world. So when I get my steps going, it's gonna be like, oh, okay, this is what we was expecting. This is what we was anticipating. So when we get there, it won't be a surprise that we got there, and it won't be a surprise that we do what we do. And I'm excited to fight all of these guys, right? Everybody that I just named, I got respect for in one way or another. You know what I'm saying? These guys are opponents, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, and certainly for the moment right now, I am learning from these guys. And I see what I see, and whether I learn, okay, that's how I would defeat him. I
Yeah.
could also learn, okay, that's how I elevate my game. You know what I'm saying? It's never about disrespecting my opponent.
Mhm.
It's I'm gonna win because I'm good, not because somebody else is bad. But yeah, I do believe that 2 to 3 years, you're gonna see a big
Word.
rise in heavyweights.
And I agree.
And I'm
the way
excited.
that
Let's
you
get
lay
that
it out,
Paramount
there are
Plus
a
money.
lot
You
of
feel
great
me?
heavyweight prospects coming up right
Come
now. Josh
on.
Hokett, Walter Walker, Mario Pinto, as you mentioned, and there's going to be more coming down the pipeline, of course. I think you make great points, Jacob. It's hard to argue with you here. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, I feel like, like we were talking about, I think the perception is based on the champion. And this is why, like, sometimes you'll see, like, throughout history in MMA that
Right.
people argue that a division is weak, when in reality they just have a really good champion. And, like, for example, a prime example would be Demetrius Johnson in flyweight in, like, 2012, 13, 14. People were talking about closing the flyweight division.
Right.
What are we doing? Any
Right.
time that Demetrius got signed a fight, they were like, okay, like, this is an easy outcome. We already know what's going to happen. You feel me? And it's great to see a champion that's so dominant and, like,
Right.
that's
Right.
like, kind of pushing the envelope as for what we can see in MMA, but it does make the division look like unhealthy. You know what I mean? So in a couple of years, when you see the top 10 or top 5, and it's going to be like Walter Walker, Josh Hokett, Mario Pinto, hopefully Jacob Estevez right there too, you feel me? And we're going to be looking at it, we're going to be like, yo, we're not in a bad spot. You know what I mean? All these dudes are athletic,
For sure.
well-rounded, and if not well-rounded, very specialized in Walter Walker's case mostly, is very specialized in that one move. But that doesn't make it like unhealthy.
Sure.
It's just kind of, this is what the sport
Sure.
is built around, Back in the day, it would have been like, if Shane Carwin gets his hands on you, if he touches you, you're going to die. You know what I mean? You're going to fall out. Or if Junior Dos Santos can get his boxing and footwork going, he's going to dance around you. If Kane can take you to the cage, he's going to break you eventually, So I don't know if it's heavyweight is in the worst spot right now. If it's like, I see even some people going so far as to say like to merge light heavyweight and heavyweight and just have an open weight over 200 division. I don't love that, because there's a reason that we have weight classes, and I think that we just need to go through some kind of periods of growth sometimes to reach those higher points. You know what I mean?
Of course. You got to destroy to rebuild. Yeah, you got to give it time. Like, all right, cool. It's bad right now, but let genuinely look to the future. The most hyped fight in heavyweight history was just whatever it was 2.5 years ago when it would have been Tom and John, right? And like we talk about the prospects, and it's fine if a division is a bit lackluster for the moment. It's not the first division that's coming to my mind. Lightweight was dead from its inception. They were gonna, you know what I mean? They were gonna cut it. It just so happened that BJ Penn was at the time of his prime the GOAT, and it was awesome to see him move up and down. And you saw Habib super dominant in the time when you could say it was the most exciting division, when it was the most exciting time for the lightweight division with Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, et cetera, right? So no, I don't think you should do a open weight division. I'm not mad at the idea of extending light heavyweight. I always have wondered, why is heavyweight a 60-pound division if 90% of your fighters are going to be from 240 to 265 anyway? So I'm not mad at extending, let's say, a light heavyweight to 235. Okay, and then guess who has a interesting question to answer? Like a Jailton Almeida. What does he do? Because he's somebody who fights at 245, So does he cut 10 pounds and I'm just thinking of people. He cuts 10 pounds and Johnny Walker puts on 15? And now you have Johnny Walker versus Jailton Almeida. Interesting fight, right? For sure.
Yeah, let's wrap it up, man. You have any shout outs you want to make to gyms, coaches, etc.?
Absolutely. Definitely always first and foremost, I want to shout out to my coaches, Richie Van Houten and Chris Roman and all the guys in my corner. All the partners in the gym with me, Marcel Ugu, another amateur, another guy, Bayonne guy, right?
That's my boy.
That's my boy, man. Shout out to him, man. He's really been in my corner and been a big help to me since the inception of my fighting. And certainly I want to shout out to my sponsor. I want to shout out to Drink Lounge out in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. They've always been a big help to me. I've done a few of my after parties there after the fights when I've had the fights in the area. Love them. They're the best. They've supported me, and I'm definitely going to support them. You guys should check them out. Drink Lounge is the place to be, for real. And and shout out to you, bro. You feel me? I definitely appreciate I appreciate your words, man. You've been kinder to me than I deserve over the years. You've always been a good person. Stand up. I'm happy to see you succeed too, bro.
Nah, man, you're a good person, dude. You deserve everything that comes to you in the good sense. You know what I mean? Because I see you working hard, and you've always kept your character, like we've talked about. You're a genuine dude. I see you in the cage. I see you in the interviews, and I feel like I'm right there with my boy. You feel me? You're not giving a different face to the crowd than you are to when we're just hanging out. So I love that, and I'm proud of you, bro, and I'm excited to see how your career continues to develop,
Thank you, bro.
I think next time we talk, you're going to have a couple more title defenses under your belt. Maybe you've gone pro, and in a couple of years, maybe we'll be having that Dana White Contender Series episode, the preview episode leading up. You feel me?
That's a fact, bro.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Jacob, for coming on the show again. I appreciate you, man. And y'all stay tuned for the next one. We got plenty more coming down the pipeline. You got another fight coming up soon? Anything etched in stone right now?
Oh, right now it's in the works, man. March 28th, Atlantic City, New Jersey. I don't got an opponent yet, but I will drop that. We're in the works for that. Yeah, we're trying to get that Jersey fight. Marketing like we said, bro. Feel me?
Hell yeah. Hopefully I can pull up on that one, man. I'd love to see
You already know. I got you.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Take it easy, everybody. Have a great day.